Guess what, guys? I finally watched Skinamarink.
Skinamarink, dinky dink, Skinamarink, doo. I love you.
Not that one. I'm of course talking about last year, 2022's analog horror sensation, Skinamarink, directed by Kyle Edward Ball on a shoestring budget of $15,000. Now, if you've seen other reviews on the internet, you'll know that people think this is either the scariest movie ever or a boring, pretentious waste of time. So I'm going to take you through it and let you make up your own mind. Skinamarink is analog horror, which in this case means it's set in 1995, although everything in the movie looks a little bit more like 1985, from the toys to the home decor. The way everything is decorated looks a lot more like my childhood than my teenagehood, but they're telling us it's 1995, so let's go. Another huge aspect of analog horror, of course, is the visuals. This whole movie is just snowy as hell. It's like trying to watch cable in your grandparents' basement on an old television with a really bad coax connector. Or was that just my childhood? Everything is super dark and snowy. It's hard to see what's going on. The audio is scratchy, like listening to an old videotape. And at times you can't even really hear what anyone is saying. So sometimes the movie has subtitles when it really wants you to know what's being said. And other times you just sort of have to strain to hear through the static. We're supposed to trust that anything the director really wants us to hear, we will hear, or it will be subtitled. I'm not really putting a spoiler warning on this because there's no traditional 3-act structure, plot narrative, so there's not really anything that can be spoiled. Skinamarink is more a vibe or a tone poem meant to evoke childhood nightmares. So the story is basically two young children, Kevin, age 4, and his sister Kaylee, age 6, are alone in the house. They wake up at night, their father has disappeared, all the doors and windows leading outside are popping in and out of existence. So is the toilet, for some reason. I don't know if this demon or entity or whatever's keeping them there thinks that the kids are going to try to escape by crawling down the toilet, or if it just has a really sick sense of humor, but it takes the toilet away as well as doors and windows. The way it's filmed at any given moment, it's difficult to tell what door is being taken away. I just had to assume it was the front door disappearing because we're not given any information that would show us that it's the front door. It could just as easily have been a closet door. It's very obvious when the toilet disappears, though. So we never see the kids straight on. We see their feet and the backs of their heads, and the camera angles are like from way down low or way up high. We're always seeing either floor or ceiling, the corners of hallways. The camera angles are solely meant to fuck with you and make you uncomfortable. Sometimes you see from what's pretty obviously one of the kids' perspectives, including in one of the best scenes in the movie. We'll get to that in a little bit. But for the most part, there are lots of close-ups of toys, the TV screen, showing old public domain cartoons, the really shitty ones that no one enjoys. Little kids are terrified of this shit, or at least I was. And the soundtrack of those terrible cartoons are the only soundtrack, the only score we get throughout the movie. So sometimes you see toys moving around by themselves. Sometimes you think something's moved, but you're not quite sure. Sometimes it's really subtle and you have to squint through the snow on the screen to try to make out what's happening. And I can see why this movie would bore a lot of people because not much is happening narratively throughout most of the movie. Eventually, an entity, demon, whatever has trapped these kids in the house starts talking to them. Like I said earlier, it is really difficult to hear what anyone is saying in this movie, and sometimes the kids, because they're so young, They sound a lot alike. I was having trouble figuring out sometimes if Kevin was talking or if Kaylee was talking. And sometimes it's even hard to differentiate their voices from the entity's voice. And I'm not sure if that's just me or if that was intentional. If it was intentional, it's kind of smart for all the theories about what's going on here. And we'll get to all those theories about what's really going on in the movie in our last section here in a little while. So Kaylee and Kevin are stuck in this loop going through. They don't know, we don't know how much time has passed. Eventually, Kaylee disappears after her eyes and mouth are sealed shut, and it's just Kevin in the house with this demon entity thing. And then the whole camera sort of flips and we're on the ceiling with Kevin walking along the ceiling, this big pile of toys at the end of the hallway. And we get a title card that says something like 572 days later. I'm really not good at remembering numbers, guys. He's walking toward this pile of toys piled on the ceiling, and it's like one of those never-ending hallways that just keeps getting farther and farther away the more you walk toward it. And then we're back to a weird perspective. We might be looking at the ceiling, and there's a scream, and blood sprays on the floor. We hear Kevin say, "Mommy." Then it cuts out and repeats, and it just keeps looping like that. Then the movie ends with the face of the entity, we assume, coming slowly out of the snow, and someone asking, "What's your name?" My first assumption was it was Kevin asking the entity, which looks a little bit like Kaylee, what its name is. Other people I've seen talk about this movie have said it was the entity asking Kevin's name or breaking the fourth wall to ask the audience their name. My assumption is still that it was Kevin asking the demon entity, whatever it is, what its name is. But I think how you read that will be dependent upon which explanation of this movie you subscribe to. So, Skinamarink is 100 minutes long, which makes it really easy to break down into 4 25-minute quarters. Our first quarter is setting the tone of the movie. There are a few things that happen that you need for context and to sort of help inform your theory of what's really going on. This is where we hear Dad talking on the phone and telling someone that Kevin was sleepwalking and fell down the stairs, but he's fine now. We don't know who Dad is talking to. I kind of assumed it was the kid's mom, but I know other people have other theories about this. So other than that, not much happens in the first quarter. It's pretty slow, a little boring. This is where a lot of people are probably gonna drop out of this movie because nothing really seems to be happening. It's slow, and it's not really doing much to build tension here. The second quarter is where the tension really starts to build, and we get what's really the best scene in the movie. We're in Kaylee's POV. She goes into her parents' bedroom, and her dad is sitting on the bed, but we know this isn't really her dad. This is the demon, and he tells her to look under the bed. There's nothing there. She comes back up. He tells her, look under the bed again, and you're thinking, oh, something is gonna happen. Something's gonna be under the bed. No, when she comes back up from under the bed the second time, Dad's gone. Mom is sitting on the other side of the bed, and the conversation they have is weird, and it leaves you feeling unsettled and disturbed. But then the tension completely dissipates in the third quarter. It gets boring again. Your attention might wander. If you've held on this long, this might be where it loses more viewers. But then as we move into the fourth quarter, and keep in mind this isn't exact, I think the tension actually starts building a little bit before what I've broken up as the fourth quarter. Everything in this part of the movie is designed to set you on edge. The camera angles start getting weirder. This is where the camera flips and puts you on the ceiling. At one point, the sound level starts going up higher and higher gradually until it's just sort of shrieking in your ear before it cuts down to normal suddenly. All your tension is building toward the fourth quarter, where it actually does a really good job of making you tense, and uncomfortable and unsettled. My cat was sitting on my lap, cradled in my arm because he's a big stupid dum-dum baby who likes to be cradled like a baby. And at this point, the tension had me squeezing him a little bit, and I had to keep consciously reminding myself not to hold on to him too tightly. Cats don't like that. So the movie did its job right there in building the tension in the fourth quarter. Alright, so who is Skinamarink For? Who is going to enjoy this movie? I think fans of liminal spaces or the back rooms, things of that nature, will enjoy this. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but it's got a similar sort of vibe to it. If creepy spaces that just feel wrong are what get to you, then you might enjoy this movie. If you just like creepy vibes and you're looking for more of an immersive experience than like a 3-act narrative structure, this movie does a good job of being unsettling in that sort of backrooms and liminal spaces, lizard brain, childhood nightmare sort of aesthetic. So the positive things about this movie, the things it does well, it does a really good job of being unsettling, even more so if you just really immerse yourself in the experience. Skinamarink is probably best watched alone with headphones on a laptop. That's how I watched it, with my stupid cat curled on me. And a couple of scenes with the kids really stand out. The scene with Kaylee in her parents' bedroom is truly the best in the movie. It elicits dread and discomfort. You're unsettled through the whole scene. And there's another scene with Kevin, with the entity telling him to hurt himself, that's truly horrific. You don't actually see him harm himself. It's left to your imagination. You just sort of see some blood spray on cabinet doors. But even without actually seeing what happens, it still is going to make you flinch. The whole movie sets you up to wonder if you're seeing things. You're never quite sure. The tiny budget of $15,000 is used really well. From those creepy-ass public domain cartoons to the snowy visuals, it hides the lack of budget really well by showcasing the cheapness instead of trying to hide it. And the final entry on our list of positives, all the weird camera angles really worked for me. Never looking at anything quite straight on just lends to the feeling of wrongness in this house. Everything feels a little off in these subtle, indescribable ways. You can't really explain why it's affecting you, but it is affecting you. And now for the negatives. While it does a good job of building tension in places, the movie is constantly losing the tension and leaving you just bored for long periods of time. There are stretches that are so tedious, it feels almost like the movie is trying to punish you for watching it, or daring you to keep watching it. And a lot of people just aren't going to be into that. Like I mentioned before, it is really difficult sometimes to tell which one of the kids is speaking, which doesn't really detract from the story very much, but it is confusing from time to time. Also, the jump scares. We need to talk about the jump scares. There are a few, and this just wasn't the sort of movie I expected jump scares in. And instead of doing what they're supposed to do, which is relieve tension after an intense moment by making you jump and then laugh at yourself for jumping, or laugh at the movie and be like, ha, you got me, movie. Skinamarink doesn't do that with its jump scares. They legitimately made me more tense instead of relieving tension, which in a movie like this could be a good thing, but it just annoyed me, and 2 times in particular, I nearly punched the laptop off my legs. These jump scares just pissed me off. 0 out of 10 for the jump scares. Do not recommend. But now we come to the main negative point of the movie, and that is its length. This would have been better at around 45 minutes if you cut out all the boring, tedious crap from the first and third quarters, and keep most of the second and fourth quarter. You have a good movie. Because if you can't keep the tension going for a solid hour 40, then your movie shouldn't be an hour 40 long. So this just makes watching Skinamarink a little bit frustrating because it's one half of a good movie, but the half of the movie that's good isn't even in consecutive chunks. Make it shorter. There's no reason it needs to be 100 minutes long. So now we come to the theories about this movie. What is really going on in Skinamarink? It seems like everyone has their own idea, and ultimately, I think it's up to each individual viewer to decide what they think is going on. But I'll take you through a few of the most popular theories. The first of which is, of course, just face value. An unknown demon has just trapped the kids in the house for unknown reasons. Everything that happens is just this entity torturing the kids, pretty fucked up. And of course, you can read it this way if you want to, if you don't care about looking any deeper into it, if you just want to sit back and watch the movie and not read too much into anything. The face value explanation is perfectly valid and fine. But I think the most popular theory is that Kevin is either in a coma or died when he fell down the stairs, hit his head, and the whole movie is either a coma dream or Kevin in purgatory. This has some merit to it, obviously, but it's also a bit of a cliche, and therefore not really my favorite theory. The next theory has to do with the kid's mom, who we don't really know much about. But in this theory, mom killed the kids, and possibly dad. At one point, Kevin asks Kaylee where dad is if he went to be with mom, and Kaylee cuts him off and says she doesn't want to talk about mom, which really makes it seem like there's something kind of funky going on there, maybe some abuse. Everything is really sort of mysterious around the kid's mom. Then there's the theory that dad killed the kids, which is pretty similar to the theory of mom killing the kids. No one wants any happy endings. Everyone coming up with these theories just wants some seriously dysfunctional shit here. In one of the wilder and least probable theories I've seen, Kevin killed everyone, and the entity is some sort of split personality of him, and I just really don't buy this one. He's 4 years old. There is no way he killed both parents and his sister, and he's 4 years old. He's not Michael Myers. He's not killing everyone. So the theory I buy into is that mom killed everyone. I think when Kevin fell down the stairs, mom actually threw him down the stairs, and that's what we see looping over and over at the end. The scream, the blood, Kevin saying mommy, that's what I personally believe fits. I think she probably also killed Kaylee and dad and herself, and I think mom is the entity in the house, not letting the kids escape her abuse. The entity telling Kevin that Kaylee didn't listen and that's why she was punished is exactly the sort of thing an abusive parent would say. And I think it's very likely that after all this 572 days of this purgatory loop, Kevin doesn't really recognize his mother as the entity and at the end is asking what its name is. So those are a few of the most popular Skinamarink theories. Let me know in the comments what your favorite theory is, and if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe so you keep seeing videos like this, and come check me out on Patreon where you get exclusive videos every month and the chance to tell me what to review next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.